Recently, I made a video on Halsey about their record label not allowing them to make music after the label decided that her album, The Great Impersonator, underperformed. What I didn't mention, because that video was mainly about labels mistreating women, was Anthony Fantano's tone-deaf and pathetic excuse of a review for The Great Impersonator. I think Fantano has deluded himself into thinking that he's a critic, to be honest. He's just a Pitchfork reviewer with a camera. Pitchfork, who allegedly were biased against Katy Perry after the release of Teenage Dream, completely ignoring the impact that it had on the world and pop music and culture and everything, just because a higher up from Pitchfork decided that she was insufficiently cool or whatever whatever that means. Fantano appears to be no different. Based on how he scores albums and talks about certain artists, it is my opinion that he's kind of unable to be objective. Once he has decided that he doesn't personally like a certain genre or sound or artist, he gives the album a low score. And in Halsey's case, he goes on a rant the year after the review was uploaded, which we'll get onto later. Fantano's commentary on Halsey's The Great Impersonator kind of tells me all that I need to know about him. And it's something that Halsey themselves called out after he brought up his review again. He accuses Halsey of suffering from main character syndrome because of what she sings about in the album. The Great Impersonator, to put it simply, is an album about Halsey's experiences, finding out that she has a terminal illness, and navigating the feelings that come with finding out they could have died, and how that impacted Halsey as a single mother and a person with her own life, dreams, etc., who was worried that she was gonna have to leave her son behind and all alone and the rest of her family, and also not have a life anymore, you know? I believe that Fantano's inability to understand this through Halsey's lyrics shows that he kind of failed to critically analyze them, which, I mean, his alleged job title is in the word critically, and he only took the lyrics at face value. I think at this point, though, that's kind of something that he is known for, and it could be on purpose. If he's being purposefully obtuse, that gets him more clicks, more attention, more outrage, etc. If it's by accident, then it just makes him a bad reviewer. Halsey is not the first example of Fantano misunderstanding lyrics. In his infamous review of Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters, Fantano criticized the production of her album, which I guess is fair enough, as Fiona is known for her less conventional production. But at the same time, you're supposed to be an objective critic who can see the good in it, but who knows. He ultimately gave the album a 7, which I feel is a pretty good review, all things considered, but the album stemmed from his comments on the song For Her, as fans claimed that he misunderstood the lyrics, or that he couldn't understand them because he is a misogynist who invalidates the experiences of all women. They aren't my words, they're kind of the words of other people, but in some ways maybe I agree. For that song, fans felt that Fantano misunderstood the song. He focused too much on the vocal effects and the production than he did on the subject matter, which is, For Her, is an extremely melancholy and personal song about rape. I believe that, while often a bit extreme, some of the fan reactions to what he said about that song are completely valid. I don't think he treated that song with the weight that he should have, and he himself deserves criticism for not taking that song as seriously as he should have. And this is how I feel about his review of The Great Impersonator too. He does not get the point, he just doesn't understand the music. He does this for many artists, like Halsey, Fiona, and Taylor Swift, etc., so many more. It can be argued that with the ways in which he reviews their albums, he has a kind of blind spot when it comes to women's experiences, and it often feels as though he is not capable of understanding women and the things that they go through, or that he has no willingness to understand. On the other hand, he is often positive in his reviews of artists like Charlie XCX, for example. But this can be seen as the Pitchfork situation I mentioned earlier, his biases creeping through. Charlie has an edge to her that the other artists mentioned maybe don't have. For example, and I don't want to hate on Charlie here, like I really don't. Please don't see this as me being a Charlie hater because I'm not. But by many people, Charlie has been referred to as a pick-me on the internet quite a lot. This accusation stemmed from that like infamous clip where on an interview she said that at a club she will avoid using the women's bathrooms and she will only use the men's bathrooms to like avoid drama, as if that makes any sense. She's also like relentlessly shady towards Taylor Swift, for example, especially when she was like with Matty Healy. It often feels like her insecurities that she expressed in Sympathy as a Knife have turned into like a deep hatred towards Taylor, which Taylor is not deserving of, in my opinion. And before anyone says anything, no, actually, Romantic is not a response to Sympathy as a Knife. It's a response to like all of the shady things that Charlie has said about Taylor. Like, for example, something that springs to mind is that photo shoot that she did with the severed hand with the friendship bracelet on it at the same time Taylor Swift was like doing the Eras tour. Was that not a bit unusual? Yes, it was. Not only this, but when Rina Sawayama called Matty Healy out on his racism targeted towards Asian people and by extension her.
Sick and tired of these microaggressions. So tonight, this goes out to a white man that watches Ghetto Gathers and mocks Asian people on a podcast. He also owns my masters! I've had enough!
Which happened while Rina was under his record label and like he owns all of her masters. Charlie sided with Matty Healy despite his blatant racism, which, you know, indirectly or directly, who knows, affected Charlie's alleged friend. Sorry, that part about Rina is like not completely relevant to the Fantano thing. I mean, it's not relevant at all. But it just annoys me so bad that people like kind of let this go. Like people just seem to have forgotten about it because like Rina like refollowed Charlie on Instagram or something. Like no, that's not a reason for you to just accept that it happened. Like no, Charlie was like kind of inadvertently racist towards her alleged friend. Okay, and she needs to be called out for that. But maybe that's just me. So yeah, as I said, my point here is not to hate on Charlie. I do enjoy her music. Crash is one of my favorite albums, like, of all time. My point, however, is, well, do you notice how Fantano regularly criticizes female artists who, like, sing about the experiences of themselves as women and the struggles that women have to go through, but consistently praises the artists who shade successful women or, like, side with their racist male friends? You know what I mean? Like, Charlie isn't the only example of, like, you know, a woman who Fantano is, like, positive towards, but, like, she's the most prominent example, I think. Ultimately, I believe that when Fantano said Halsey had main character syndrome, he was kind of just projecting. For some reason, Variety decided to interview Anthony after Halsey responded to him, where he describes himself as the most relevant music critic of his and any generation for the last 10 years. And in a tweet, he makes a remark about how people are more into his review of The Great Impersonator than they are the album itself.
You're going to hell, bitch. Die today and see what the fuck happens. You won't be sitting with Jesus. I promise you that one.
Personally, I think that's a bigger indicator of main character syndrome than being scared you're gonna die, but maybe that's just me. I do think it's true that Fantano has a bad habit of invalidating the experiences of women. He definitely appears unwilling to educate himself on the struggles of women, or at least he pretends to do that for clout. When Halsey called him an edgelord raised by 4chan, yeah, I agree with her, Halsey's right. Based on what I know about him and the videos and the clips that I've seen, Halsey is absolutely correct about that, 100%. As I said before, Fantano is biased against certain artists, and that affects how he reviews them. And those artists he is biased about predominantly appear to be women. As I said, he is just a Pitchfork reviewer with a camera. Similarly to him, Pitchfork are constantly accused of holding biases against certain artists. and that's why I personally do not take his reviews seriously, and neither should you. I'm not gonna say online whether or not I believe Fantano is a misogynist based on what I've said in this video. I'll let you figure it out, but I think I've been pretty obvious about my stance. So I'm sorry for going on a rant of my own, but when he began talking about his The Great Impersonator review again and started like bullying Halsey online, provoking them into a response just a few days ago, I felt like I just needed to talk about him. Maybe I should get off Twitter. No, I definitely should. So yeah, that's all that I have to say. I really hope you found what I said interesting. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you agreed. And if you didn't agree, I'd love to hear why, respectfully, please. So yeah, you should like, subscribe, comment, probably. Yeah, that's all. Bye.